Today on the Great White Shark Experience podcast, we have Lacey, the head field specialist for oceans research, back with us, with our new guest, Emmo. Originally from Limpopo, Emmo is an outreach coordinator for oceans research who has had an insanely exciting career so far. From firefighting in the bush, moving giant snakes, to his first ever time being on a boat and working with great white sharks. Now he is going on to his next adventure, collecting data on a game reserve surrounded by lions. So welcome, guys. Lacey, your second time around, repeat customer, and Emmo, your first time on.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
I've been postponing for quite a long time now, yeah.
It's time to emerge from the cocoon as a new social butterfly.
This is it, your debut on the podcast. Start of many.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be.
Well, I don't know, but I'm ready.
Every time you're in town now.
I'm not going to be able to shut you up after this.
Well, it's kind of weird how I didn't notice the area, but I pass here every flipping week.
Every day.
Yeah, almost every day.
And you're in the shark world. And you missed the shark cage diving centre.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
pretty much. But the shark
awesome.
world and the terrestrial world.
And the terrestrial world now. You started with oceans research.
Now I'm going back to my
Lacey.
world.
To your roots, yeah.
Terrestrial.
Well, the first time that we had staff training,
Yeah.
Emmo had never been on a boat.
Really? First time at sea?
Yeah, June 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
June 20.
Yeah.
May. It was May.
May.
Was it May?
Mm-hmm.
No, I started here.
Yeah, but
on
we
the
had
first.
training right before, the 4 days.
Oh yeah,
before.
with Sasha, the 28th of May.
What a
Was it?
legend.
Yeah. 28th of May.
It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another one in the ocean world that gets seasick.
And I was so looking forward to being seasick. I sent someone a message that
Yeah.
so someone did ask, how was it? I was like, I didn't get seasick. If you can still remember the first
The first time.
trip, second trip, and the third trip. I never experienced seasickness.
Okay.
And someone asked.
No, you said you were fine, but you lied because you told me a month later. You're like, oh, I didn't feel good.
But I didn't vomit
Yes,
compared
correct.
to the other times that I had to vomit. Sometimes more than once, more than twice. But I said to someone, I'm still looking forward to seasickness.
I'll say to your credit, you've got the best attitude for somebody who gets flattened like a pancake on the ocean.
Violently seasick.
But you're like, happy to be here.
Yeah, I was
Happy to be here.
honest. But now, I think I was just being stubborn that time because you used to advise me to take seasickness
medication.
meds. And I was like, well,
And you didn't take them?
I hate pills, to be
Pills.
honest.
Oh, that's fair. That's a good rule to live by.
But now,
Also, you're like, I must be a tough man.
I'm not used to taking pills,
No.
and I hate them. But now,
But then
If you
violently throwing up soon changes that mantra.
actually, the pneumonia,
Oh, that was what... Yeah, you had that for a while.
yeah, because it was caused by
Seasickness.
chest infection that was induced by vomiting.
Seasickness.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, you were down for a while.
Down and out
Yeah,
for a while.
But you also overcame seasickness. When you were on the water consistently, you actually made it to the point where you didn't.
If you check my bag, I had a lot of meds, yeah.
Yeah, and I always had a lot of snacks. I take one every time I go, religiously. Doesn't matter, every single time.
Like I had to buy Vicks Vapor
Yeah.
for my nose, so I don't smell any fish. Yeah, any fish smell.
Oh, so the smell bothers you?
Yeah. Big
Is it
time.
the movement or just the smell?
I think the smell
of everything.
Not the smell of everything. I can stand the
Petrol?
not the petrol,
charm.
but the Seal Island smell. I can stand that.
That's fine.
But the charm, late now.
A nice manky fishy smell after it's been out for a day or two as well.
Because sardines are the world's worst fish. In my
Oily,
humble opinion, I hate
sticky.
them. They're so necessary.
Those chum buckets.
Yeah. So if I didn't have my buff, my nose cover, oh flip.
Projectile.
Yeah. The best was when you and Charlie were on the boat and me and Justin were here's the graveyard at the bow of the boat. And the rest of the interns, we're doing stuff in the back and the two of you are just passed out on the bow, dead to the world.
You get it every time though. There's always those people that just can't get seasickness and there's nothing you can do about it.
No, but you would you'd rally and you'd in between moments when you had clarity
Recent
you'd come
moments.
up. And one of my favorites was because the side of Triton's kind of narrow and it's not really much room, especially on the side with the ladder to the top deck for more than one person to pass at a time. And so me and an intern, it was just we were in a little bit of a traffic jam there, and Emo was trying to get to the front. He's literally like not saying anything, pursed lips, and I was like, "You're trying to like go off the bow, and there's the entire side of the boat." I'm like, "Just go over."
That was
I can't move. Just anywhere.
The first day we went tagging, shark tagging.
Yeah.
That was the day I got lung
In July,
infection.
the white shark tagging.
Yeah.
That was the day you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were.
Because I was going to bath in front, and I came across Lacey stopping me, and I had to keep the vomit inside.
No, you did not have to keep the vomit inside. I was stuck behind somebody else, and all you had to do was go this. You're like, I need to be in the bow. I'm like, the ocean is
right there.
Right there. No one is keeping you.
There were a lot of people, and you can't be gagging out while everyone is staring at you. Like, I couldn't
Nobody
even
was
say
staring.
a word.
I know.
I was like,
It's like, you're a sucker for punishment.
Surrounded by ocean, we've got to get to the
But I'm
front.
pretty sure the intern that was on my right, I think, was also sick and not moving. Like they were doing something where I couldn't move.
I remember what was happening. There was someone who was taking a leak at the back.
Yeah, must
and
have been
it
a
was
girl in a bucket.
A
Yeah.
lady. And I couldn't turn my head.
Get from chivalry.
I don't think I was aware of that.
You nearly spewed all over people because of chivalry. I like it.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. Kind of just been a fun domino effect.
So now I have to quickly go to the bar. And then here is everyone on my way. And Lacey's like, this side is full, so you can just, I'm like, someone is peeing that side. And
But you can't tell me that. I'm so sorry.
My mouth is full of puke.
I had no idea you were being chivalrous, and I apologize for prolonging your suffering.
yeah, but I had a lot of fun experiences, eh?
You did a great job.
For real, because I knew nothing when I studied.
No.
Nothing about research, but
What background? So, what did you do before you came here?
I was in forest firefighting.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. Where was that? Up in.
Just here, just between Grootbrak and George.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, there is a state forest outside, and yeah, that's where we were based. So, forest firefighting,
Yeah.
marine research.
You're jack of all trades.
Yeah,
Pretty
so
much.
I
Snake King over here.
Snake King?
I knew nothing, yeah.
So you worked with snakes before that?
I just love snakes.
Oh, you
and
just
I
love
can-
snakes?
I can handle. I'm not certified to handle them, but I can
You can handle it.
handle them.
As far as I'm concerned, if I have a snake problem, I'm calling Emo.
Come get it.
Help!
Yeah, so June, I knew nothing
Yeah.
with research, and Oceans Research just said, here are your interns, leave them in the field, and shit, I knew nothing. But I had to like be the field specialist.
But you did a good job, because also I feel like it's so important for people who are learning how to be in the field to watch project leaders come up against situations where they don't know the answer, or you have to pivot on a dime, or you're like, oh shit. You know, I don't know. Yikes! I got to think fast on my feet, because I don't know about you guys, but the number of times I've gone through school and had an experience where you kind of by default expect the leader to kind of know what to do, or you feel imposter syndrome if you don't know what to do, or you take a long time to learn, and it's just really helpful and incredibly important. Now, being on the leadership side of things, you're like, no, that's a very real part of research and wildlife work is. If you think you know everything, I don't trust you, because then you're going to miss out on a lot of important stuff that we haven't discovered yet.
That's it.
Yeah, you close your mind to what's out there. I mean, so many pivotal scientific discoveries are because of an accident or something breaking or thinking outside the box or, you know, noticing something that you didn't before. And how many times do you have like very seasoned vets deny that that's a possibility or true or what was happening
100%.
all the
I've had
time?
it recently, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the orca stuff, right?
Orca
That
stuff,
happened a lot.
yeah.
Which, like, to science's credit, I think is why the scientific process is great, is you should have people, you have to support your points with evidence.
Yeah.
So if we all just blindly accept it too without evidence or justification or replicability, you know, then how do you differentiate what we can put stock in or not?
Yeah.
So we have to, critically think about the work that's being done. In the same vein, you gotta put the ego aside sometimes, oftentimes, and say, okay, how could I be wrong? You should ask as many times as how could they be wrong, I feel.
Well, it's a life lesson as well, isn't it? Like, in so many walks of life, you get those people who are adamant they're right, and you have to have a certain level of open-mindedness, and you have to admit when you're wrong as well.
You must.
And just, okay, hold your hands up. It's fine. It's not. That's one of the big problems, I think, with science as well, is that everyone wants to be right. No, everyone's afraid to be wrong. And that's great, but then you're denying what science actually is. It's like you're supposed to be wrong.
And you also
most of the time.
Most of the time you're wrong. And there's a publication bias too, where if you run an experiment or a study, which isn't necessarily experimental, some empirical study, if you get non-significant results, people don't want to publish that. But you can't go into a science experiment or a research question or hypothesis already knowing the answer. Then you've already introduced bias, which is a fatal flaw.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to get torn to shreds by peer review as well, as it should.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of that. I think there's a journal somewhere I read or heard about. I don't think I read this, but I heard about it where it's designed for those types of experiments, like not statistically significant.
Yeah.
But, I've heard Enrico say this and other mentors as well, but most recently his wording was 0 is often the most important number that you have in science. And I think that's so true, especially now, for example, for the white sharks. Nobody wants to go to a spot where we know that there are no sharks. You can say with confidence we likely won't see one, but you have to prove that.
Is a confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation bias is totally a thing. Like, you have to go and you have to sit there and you have to not see something.
Yeah.
Because anything of urgency, you've got populations going extinct. If we aren't out there spending that much time documenting what is, you won't know. Or what isn't. You can't say something isn't there because you don't see it.
Yeah.
You have to actually put in effort for that.
Definitely, 100%. No, it's very true. And so, you've had a bit of a crash course in the field then.
Yeah, to be honest.
How did you get into marine science? How did you go from firefighting to?
Well, I was a volunteer in 2019 with Oceans Research.
Really?
Yeah.
I must have met you then before.
Probably, because I used to hang out with Sopo when she goes to schools, and just that I didn't get the chance to be in the actual field.
Yeah.
So when I was in training for driver's course, that's when I got a call from Enrico saying, okay, if you would like to, please join us, be an outreach coordinator / field specialist. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to think about this, I'm just going for it. So yeah,
I like that. Don't think about it, just jump.
Yeah, I've always admired like being in the ocean or in the actual field of science, just to see how everything works, how data collection goes, and all those. So in forest firefighting, it's not science; it's like physical work.
Yeah.
But here, it's all about reading, following hypotheses and all those stuff. So, I was like, okay, I studied environmental science and I've never been in the actual science field. Yeah. So I just kept to Enrico, until now. And now I'm going to continue with data collection.
But you're also a great scientist naturally, because I feel like that curiosity is the most important element to always ask questions. Like, that is, anybody can be a scientist. Literally, everybody is to some degree every single day. But as long as you're constantly asking a question and collecting data and thinking about that, that's science.
That is science.
I think it's natural to everyone, just being inquisitive and just that most people don't follow those questions or don't formulate out the questions. So
literally,
I think everybody does think you have to go and get like 4-year degrees from a good university and this and that, and
it doesn't really work that way. Okay, for you to be a recognized scientist, you have to produce a certificate to show that I have this, so I qualify to be a scientist. But I don't really think it's all about having those certificates, because we do have a lot of people who have those certificates, but they're shitty scientists.
Yeah.
And we do have people who don't have those certificates, but their ideas and the way of thinking.
Chris Fallows is one of the best naturalists I've ever met, and the way that he explains like natural behavior, you know, I know him from obviously white sharks and stuff, but getting to know him very well, it's not just sharks, it's the entire natural world, and he's one of a perfect example for me of somebody who is by all like technical qualifications not a scientist, and is one of the most brilliant scientists I've ever met, because of the patterns he sees, the questions he asks, the way he explains major like scientific theories and ideas, and in a very accessible way. But by trade but not by trade quotes, is a photographer, but also like a naturalist, and it just comes from vomiting out questions.
It's all about asking questions. After asking yourself, then you're gonna ask someone else. Then from there, you will have to figure out solutions on your questions. So I think that's how science goes. Obviously, you will have to follow some protocols according to books. But if we didn't have those maybe man-made protocols, everyone could participate in science and have a share in asking those questions, following those method of data collection. But now with science, they say you need to produce a certificate, which is not all about that. I think that is also...
I think the idea that you have to is there still, but I don't know, there's so many opportunities out there where you can get in there if you show you've got a hard work ethic, like you and like other people and like Chris Fallows. That's sort of how he did. Show you've got that work ethic, show you add value, and the doorways will open. So I think the narrative is that you need that qualification, but I don't actually think that's always necessarily the truth in the real world scenario.
I think you just need for everything you need training, right? But it doesn't mean if you don't have training you can't do it, or you can't learn it, or you have to do it in one specific way.
And sometimes on-the-job training is actually...
It's way better.
Far better,
Holy cow. I mean, like for graduate school, we had a whole presentation that everybody in the lab would go to every year, but it was required if you were new and you hadn't been, on any of the shark tagging trips yet. And you go through the protocol, everything's explained to you, but there's so much of it in that presentation too that's just like, this is going to make so much more sense when you're there. And then there's a whole training and series of trainings that we'd go through that was just experience based. And it's true, you can memorize a methodology to death, but until you, for example, we would draw blood from sharks. I don't think there's a picture of that anywhere, but it's one of those things that you can explain till you're blue in the face, and everybody's going to look at you like, wait, what? And then as soon as you insert the needle to try and draw blood for the first time, you're like, oh, because you're putting, like, basically what you do. I need another shark. I'm not even wearing one.
Here's one.
Yeah, but I need the peduncle. I need the tail. That's okay. So, may I have your hand?
Yes, you may.
Okay, this is the shark's tail. Yep. Head is over here. So, the two places that are easiest to access a blood vein for a shark is like right by the dorsal fin, but also right underneath the tail. Dorsal fin is extraordinarily dangerous because if you insert a needle, you can paralyze and therefore kill the shark. So don't do that. This is also difficult, and so you need training to do this, primarily for animal welfare. But basically what we would do is we'd have 3 people on the shark. We call that the jumping team. It's stabilized. So somebody's on the head, somebody's on the mid-body, and then somebody picks up the tail, and it's kind of like you're playing air guitar. Like you pick up the tail. And different sharks react differently to that. But then you have your needle, just any old syringe, and then the bevel you want facing you. Yeah. So let's say head of shark, tail of shark. You stick the needle in perpendicular to the shark's body. You want the body to be as straight as possible, and that bevel is facing you because that's the direction that the blood is flowing. So it's going to go into that bevel first, and you stick the needle in until you can feel that backbone. You stick it all the way in, and you have to kind of stick it in there because shark skin's really thick. You're not going through like the heaviest part of dermal tentacles, but that's still where the tail is, so that's where all the power in a shark is. And then you stick it in until you feel the backbone, and then they're like, you pull it out just the tiniest bit, and then you pull the syringe to tap that vein so you don't go through it or close it. Okay. And my first version of the tiniest bit was way too much pulling out. I don't even move it at this point because the boat is basically what moves that hair's breadth for you. But you can comprehend it, but until you're actually physically feeling it,
you have no idea.
it makes every single person who's gone through that has this clairvoyant moment when you actually do it. And I think you
figure
could,
it out.
and that's like, that's science, but in any field, actually physically doing it and messing it up. So I tell my interns too, I'm like, I don't, unless you do, you're good.
Done the tape, yeah.
Put the shark back in the water. It was on land too long.
3 minutes.
Don't do that. Don't do that at home, children. Don't ever, or adults, leave a shark out of the water erroneously. It's not
So
good for the animal.
even though it is like that with science, you need to learn all those skills and everything. I think a person on their own can read that, but they still need experience, which they're gonna get through. Firstly, it's gonna be training.
And that method evolves as people do it too. Like that methodologies and ours with oceans has evolved as people have done it and had that experience and then had to mess up or have noticed a pattern of this is much easier if we do it this way, or this is less stressful on the animal if we do it this way.
Okay,
and so even that, you could have a solid methodology and it will go through evolution as your technology gets better.
Yeah.
You know, tag technology, better engines, you can have a pump on a boat, you know, as opposed to however long ago, you can have a lot more electrical wiring, and that putting water on a shark can significantly reduce its stress and make the whole thing better.
Yeah.
All those little evolutions. I don't know if you had the same thing in like forestry and fire stuff.
It was more physical. Well, in forest and fire stuff, we used to deal with plants a lot, but not animals. When we come across a snake, maybe you just have to remove it. So even when you're removing it, you just have to be gentle with it.
But if you're dealing with fire, that's an independent entity essentially.
Well, with fire, it's all about teamwork.
Running fast.
Teamwork does what? Teamwork makes what?
Dreamwork.
One more time, louder for the people in the back.
The dreamwork. So yeah, with fighting fire, it's quite a lot of work, to be honest, and your team needs to be disciplined, like highly disciplined, because you are as a crew leader, you are the one who does a lot of reading and you know a lot of strategies. So the team depends on you. So when you say, okay, as a team, we're doing this. As a team, we are waiting until that fire reaches there, then we attack. So it's all about following instructions. And as a crew leader, you need to follow the protocol or strategies, right strategies of fighting fires in different fuel, in different plants. So
Sounds like science though. Like that sounds a lot like a shift.
everything can be science, you know.
Yeah.
Just coming up with strategies and.
So what are you going into now? Because you've just got a new job, haven't you?
Well, I'm going to be a biomonitoring assistant.
Okay.
So it's also in science,
Yeah.
which is good, but obviously in land,
Different field, terrestrial.
yeah, terrestrial organisms. So what I spent a day with the team that I'm joining. So what they do twice a week, they go out and they use the quadrant for data collection. Mostly they do one by one. The size of
Quadrants are 1 meter by 1 meter PVC square.
yeah. So just like what we do in tide, our tide shifts.
Tide shift, yeah.
So you go with it and just place it at a random area that they choose using a map, because it's a quite the area is quite big. So they just pick an area. I don't know what influences them to choose that area.
Yeah.
So there are areas that are marked that okay, this area need to be studied, that area need to be studied, and twice a week they go out with it and they go and study organisms that are there in the quadrant.
Cool.
The same way we do in tide. So you're gonna split the quadrant into 4 sections.
Yeah.
And then you start with this, start with it, north corner, south corner, just like that.
Are you counting the species as well?
Yeah, we're counting the species and then looking at the most dominant species within the quadrant.
Cool.
So after that, you're gonna collect the insect samples that are there.
I don't envy you that.
It's quite, to be honest, it's quite fun.
It's quite fun, yeah.
It is. It's.
How do you collect insects?
You use this sort of sieve.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll be swinging it on the grass, and maybe after 15 minutes you'll be having insects that are inside.
There, yeah.
And then you go to the office and look at what you have and check if you have any insect that is invasive.
Okay, yeah.
And then that's how you're gonna develop strategies of managing those invasive
I'm
species.
so thankful that people like you exist, so I don't have to do that.
So there is
So thankful.
there is this one guy who's a weirdo in there. So he's a weirdo because when I entered the office, so I saw there like moth and some insects pinned on the cardboard and pasted on the wall. So he spends maybe over 50% of his time at work studying new insects and then finding the ones that are dead in the field and bringing them back in the office and pinning them on the wall.
Sounds like he's got
Insects are tiny. Like, how do you pin?
They
That's like
use,
the standard, like if you go to any, like the insects and net, what's the word I'm looking for,
These are like
exhibits.
little glass presses, don't they?
They use a thin needle, like
Okay, very thin.
quite thin.
So is that part of your job? You have to go and analyse all these insects on the wall?
Yeah, and they have like a bunch of books. A huge.
I'm so excited for you.
I'm congratulations, and I'm excited for you.
I'm so happy.
You're gonna do great at it.
I'm so happy
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I hated the ocean, but terrestrial life is quite.
More for you.
I get seasick.
It doesn't move.
Yeah.
Ooh, and that's why I like the ocean. There's still a lot of bugs in there.
But the only stressful thing about the new job is that, okay, there are lions in the reserve. So the conservation team, when we go out, you are not supposed to carry any weapon in you.
You like that?
You get a Jeep though, right?
I was like, what? Nice.
Not even like a...
Yeah, so there are buffaloes, there are rhinos, there are
Hippos?
cheetahs,
Cool.
and there are leopards, hyenas, lions. But when you go out as the research team, you're not supposed to carry.
Does anybody go with you for safety? Or is it just you and the big old noggin?
Do you get a Jeep? You get a car, right? You get a car.
But obviously, you're not going to collect your data while you're in the car. You'll have
Depends
to.
how close those
well,
lions are.
Yeah.
I can waft out the driving seat.
As you go, while you're just flooring it, like, get what you can.
So you actually depend on tour guides. So you depend on your radio, listening to tour guides or communicate with them. Where are the lions today? Okay, they are on the north side. Where are they? On the west side. So you just depend on that. So if they only see 3 and the reserve has like 5 lions and they say 3 are on that side, the chances of you
Seeing the other two.
yeah.
There's only 2 out of 5.
So it's quite interesting.
20%. still.
Interesting.
It's quite interesting. Yeah.
Oh, that would be
So,
thrilling. I mean, it's not that different, like, if we're going on a dive. I mean,
yeah, it's not so different because
who's gonna...
No, I guess so, but like,
Swim
I suppose
by.
lions are a bit different, aren't they? Like,
Yeah, and scuba divers are loud, whereas bug collection doesn't seem very noisy.
yeah.
But what about the
Sharks.
spiders? No, you know
Yeah,
what?
we-
I rescind my question.
actually we
You
do.
went there.
So snakes, are you worried about boomslang?
No, come on, snakes. Snakes are my babies.
So you're not bothered one bit about boomslang and...
No, not that I would go there looking for troubles with them, but.
But like, see, I think snakes ruin a perfectly good walk. That's my attitude on snakes. Like, in the UK, I think we have adders and that's about it. That's the most deadly creature in the UK.
Oh, the
And even
adder.
that'll probably just make your ankle swell up. You can go for a walk. You can't go for a walk I don't feel like you can go for a walk anywhere with long grass. Because there's going to be snakes, isn't there?
Well, with a snake, what? I think people mistake them with.
That wasn't a
other-
no.
See, so the great white shark world
Yeah.
has lots of misconceptions, and I
Okay.
know the snake world does too. I'm just not aware of them. So when there's long grass, I think there's snakes. It's like when people go for a swim in the sea and they think there's sharks. Or
There
big
are.
sharks. There are, but like they think they're going to get chomped by a great white, don't they? I think I'm going to get bitten by a snake.
I did step over. I think we later found out it was a pretty venomous snake. Like we were on a hike, two of my friends from grad school and one of them's older brothers, and we were walking on like a hike in South Carolina, and half of us are just, it's an easy hike, so half of us are in like open-toed shoes, and we just half of us had stepped over and did not notice, and the other person was like, and the snake was still in the middle of the road, and two of us had just.
Oh, so none of you.
No, we just walked as normal and didn't realize we'd stepped over this like venomous snake. We're like,
And nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
no, yeah.
But okay, with stepping over a snake, that can be dangerous. I think
Yeah.
actually it can be dangerous. But there is a misunderstanding when it comes to how snakes react. Let's just say you are walking on an area where there are snakes. The moment it feels your vibrations through its stomach, so it's gonna move away if you are walking towards it. But there are snakes such as the adders, buff adders, bark adders, those lazy ones. They can stand their grounds
They don't move.
and hide
Okay.
because they are good. Like their color patterns, it's camouflage for hiding because they don't move away.
Yeah.
In most cases, when I was still a forest firefighter, the snakes that I've held a lot or removed a lot were puff adders and big puff adders.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the only one, like
You have to
proper
specify.
venomous one
Big
I've
ones.
seen.
And
yeah.
big puff adders. Well, we would be removing fuel load reduction, where you are cutting off longer grasses
Yeah.
and longer trees, just to prevent fire from starting or spreading if ever it starts. So obviously, if you are deep in long grass, you'll be where snakes live. So there might be more than 10 snakes there, but I've worked there for like 2 years, but none of us have ever been attacked by a snake. But we have been in close proximity with snakes, big snakes, but nothing
They don't
ever
care.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so-
folly of human-centric thinking is
Yep.
you're really not that important.
No. Well, that's it. No, I suppose I don't know what the statistics are on snake bites. But
Not high.
in Australia, I think they're higher, aren't they?
But still, they're not that high. I went through like a whole phase where I was looking up stats.
But
Not that you have to go out looking for trouble or harassing snakes, obviously.
oh, same
why-
with sharks, isn't it?
Yeah, if
But, yeah.
you harass a snake or you don't respect sharks or crocodiles or any other animals, obviously it will have to show you.
Get away.
It's
It's the same
True
thing if you're
colors.
hiking and you happen, like, you can't control if you're going to come across a bear or happen to be between a bear and its cub.
Yeah.
You know, that's dangerous as all hell. But you don't blame yourself or the bear if that's a freak crisscross a path. Same deal with a big
A
shark,
snake.
same deal with a snake, same deal with, anything else like that. But
so
I used to work on a farm in Australia. We were picking. Started on a banana farm,
oh,
and the guy had been bitten twice by a brown snake, which is like.
how did he survive?
Well, this is the thing. The first time,
what snake?
brown snake,
Second most venomous
second-
snake in the
yeah.
world.
So the first time he did it, he got bitten, and then he rang his dad, but then carried on working, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to like reduce your heart rate, aren't you?
Yeah, because you don't.
But this
get
guy's built like a Coke machine with legs. He was huge. He was like
He's also
his
an
name was
Australian.
his name was Blocker, and he looked every part of the name that you can imagine. And anyway, so his dad got him in the hospital, rushed him to the hospital, and they hooked him up to a drip, and he's like peeing blood, and his kidneys are thing, and he's on an IV drip, and he's there overnight. And anyway, so he got the antivenom in time, so he was fine. He survived. The second time he got bit. This is Australians for you. He got bit. He got bit. Carried on working. Same again. Got rushed to the hospital. He's in there for like maybe an hour or so, and then checks himself out and goes to the pub.
That is the most Australian.
He
I feel
basically-
like British and South African thing.
His mum rocks up to the hospital and says, "I'm here to see such and such." Where is he? And he says, "Oh, he's checked himself out." He said, "Find him at the bar. We couldn't keep him here any longer." So she goes to the bar and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like, "I didn't have any of the symptoms I had last time, so I'm pretty good." So yeah, he's just there fucking down in schooners.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah.
Well, apparently, I think is it load shedding? There's like an anti-venom shortage. I feel like I read that somewhere, and I don't know if that's South Africa or if that's global, but also I think with load shedding it's an issue because they can't keep
it cold,
refrigerated. Yeah.
I heard there's a guy working on a powdered form of.
From Tony, right?
Yeah.
Super cool.
That would be amazing, isn't it?
Go watch an earlier podcast. We're not going to tell you.
What's his name?
I don't know, but we got to make the viewers watch the other podcast.
Yeah, that was on Tony's podcast, and it's going to kill me now because his name. Oh, it'll come to me. Yeah, that's super interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because in certain places where power's not regular, like what do you do? How do you keep things cold? And
you can't. Well, that to me is also like we've got all the ingenuity, all the creativity, all the smarts, and technically funds, I feel like, to solve a lot of these big problems. They're just not all in the same pot with the same priorities.
Yeah.
We could address a lot of climate change issues. We could address a lot of these like food insecurity issues, housing issues, but
the money disappears quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, agreed. I'd love to follow up. A couple years ago, it was like preliminary studies, or maybe it was an abstract at a conference before a study about how greed actually changes your brain.
Yeah.
Like a certain amount of money can change like your chemical structure and be, I don't know if it's like a personality disorder or what. This is where it's years ago and I haven't followed up. But I'd love to see, because I truly believe that. I truly believe a certain amount of money and greed just changes you.
I think it does, yeah?
Mm.
Yeah, I think so, probably.
Yeah, I think probably it could do, yeah. But every environmental factor has a different change on your body, doesn't it? Like physiologically and... So that is an environmental factor, isn't it, essentially?
Mm-hmm. And also think about the things that you prioritize. Each of us has a specific bandwidth to care about a certain number of people, plus take care of ourselves, plus meet our basic needs, plus be there for others, plus do our job, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't possibly give everything you've got for everybody in the world. Also, not everybody deserves that. I don't know if it's a popular or unpopular opinion, but it's one I have. And so how do you kind of prioritize all that? And then if you've got a crap load of money, you live in a completely different world.
Yeah.
Completely different world.
I think to make that money, though, you have to have a certain mindset in the first place to get there, don't you? Mm-hmm. So I think, well, I don't know. Personally, that's my opinion.
I've never been there. I don't plan on getting there either.
You do see wealthy people, and they have a very...
The urgency is different, though.
Yeah.
Like, I have this little theory that you either spend time or money, and if you have so much money, you can save so much time doing other things. So the consideration of, that should be easy. Or think about all the tasks that we have that are really easy that we put off because we know they're easy and quick fixes.
Yeah.
You could maybe extrapolate that to major world issues. If you're one of, like, the top 1% of the planet and you have that much money, so many things are done for, like, taken care of because it's financial, that the urgency for a lot of things that are really basic needs for the rest of us are... That just doesn't register. That's not even in your sphere of something that's important. Yeah. Which is why I feel like we see a lot of inaction from the top, like the High Seas Treaty.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That's just passed recently, hasn't it? And it's
20 years later.
20 years after it first started.
Something like that, according to...
So what does that treaty involve?
I have only read news articles describing it so far, so I don't know the specifics.
How accurate they are.
Yeah. I don't know how... like what the treaty specifically entails, but I think the goal is to try and help meet the protect 30% of the oceans by 2030 kind of COP15 goal. And it's a really big deal because it's the first legislation ever to regulate the high seas, which are defined as anything beyond 200 nautical miles, which is each country's coastal exclusive economic zone, or EEZ. So anything beyond that's the high seas, and it's fair game for the world. And so I think some of it breaks down like who's got different rights or access or ownership of any sort of samples collected there, but also it's gonna, I think, help put in structural framework in order to create protected areas, marine protected areas in the high seas. So I think one of the ones I read was the Sargasso Sea, and then something off of Costa Rica. I forget what it was. But the kicker is it still has to be ratified, and then each country still has to implement it, so it's still like years away. But that's kind of the...
Well, 2030 is not years away.
No, it's not.
Well, technically it is, but it's not that many years away.
No, that to me, all of the... Maybe it's the pessimist in me, but since I was a kid, I've been counting on my hands, figuring out, like, am I too young? Am I going to miss the stuff that I, like, felt like, seriously, like 5-6 years old, was like, how many years till I'm 18? Okay, if climate change, I read about things are degrading this way, so am I going to be able to see stuff in time? And sadly, like, a lot of my career, I've been like 1 year too late, or the first season in Mossel Bay. It's the first time that we've had terrible season with white sharks. But
I know I think I went to dive the Great Barrier Reef once, and that was the where I went was destroyed really.
Yeah.
And then you see obviously the David Attenborough documentaries, and
when David Attenborough says the most incredible natural thing he's ever seen was the Great Barrier Reef, the man who's seen every beautiful natural wonder in the world, and that's the most beautiful thing that he's ever seen that took his breath away,
and now
that says something.
Now it's just a shadow of what it was, I think. But
there was some good ocean news. You got to follow the environmental positive news. But there was relatively recently, they saw a chunk of Great Barrier Reef actually exhibit a lot of recovery for like the first time in decades.
Really?
Some of the reef came back. Yeah,
okay, that's
better
amazing.
than they thought. So like that's the
good
ocean's
news,
mad resilient.
Yeah.
I think there was another positive
Just needs a
thing.
break.
It needs a break.
Mm.
Nobody wants to give it a break, but like,
yeah,
we are genuinely creative enough to figure that out.
Yeah. It's just
But who do you think has more influence in creating those legislations or the rules that has to be followed when it comes to environmental protection? Who has that influence? Because we can see there is a lot of green organizations, if I can call them that way, who are trying to advocate for the environment, the oceans in particular. Actually, in South Africa we have a few. If you check, currently there is even a lot of youth organizations that are trying to advocate for the ocean, but who has the authority on implementing all those regulations? That, I mean, imagine I think almost every year people are gathering, big people, the authorities of different countries are gathering in one country saying, okay, this is for maybe environmental legislations, but they are not being implemented. Who is supposed to enforce that?
That's a great question.
Enforcement's the issue, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
lots of governments and write a lot of policy to protect things, but don't enforce it. So that's like, especially like in Mozambique, we were talking to Esther and Lynette, I think, and the Coast Guard there doesn't even have a boat. So they've got the rules there to protect it, an MPA, but then nobody on there to enforce it. So
South Africa too, when we were doing research into Hoop in 2019, we were essentially as a research team, we were basically the border patrol when we were in there, and De Hoop is like one of the flagship MPAs of this country.
Yeah.
And it's very long. It's like, is it 3 nautical miles offshore?
Yeah.
And we were primarily operating on the eastern boundary, and the number of times that we caught people either turning away they were speeding towards the boundary, and we're doing our work right there, and you'd see them pop a Yui and turn around, or we're leaving early in the morning and there's a boat that has definitely been there overnight. We caught people on the west side from Arniston, I think, like fishing into Hoop, like one of the commercial longliners. This made the news. Like, this was shortly after I left, but they were caught as red-handed as you possibly can be, with photos, videos, GPS, right off of Kopialien, which is like the big main area that people on the nature reserve side, the land side, go. Like, think about the point. If the point was an MPA here in Mossel Bay, that's where it is. And they are smack dab there. And there's photographic evidence. You can go back to my Facebook. We made a whole stink about it, of them with a critically endangered juvenile smooth hammerhead on board that they are not permitted to land. Yeah. It's as red-handed as you possibly can be, and I think they were supposed to not fish for a while, and there's like a whole legislative thing. But the point of that being, when we were starting and getting to know the Cape Nature conservation managers at the time, they were saying, like, we don't have enough money. We've got like 2 people for this whole park, and we don't have enough money to pay them and pay for petrol and go out there. And one of the 2 people was recently in the hospital because he came upon a group of like 7 poachers and got beat up.
Yeah.
And that's two people whose entire job is to manage this MPA and nature reserve. And so even if there were 2 of them, that's not enough to actually enforce any legislation. So it's, and what are you going to do? What if you hire people from the local community? This is something I've learned from talking with locals.
Yes, actually.
They can't go back home with their see people that might be their neighbors that they caught poaching, and then you're going back home in the same area. That's dangerous.
It is. quite dangerous. Yes, because most of organizations that are being given contract to look after a lot of MPAs, you'll find that they are implementing them as EPWP.
What's EPWP?
EPWP in South Africa, it's sort of a program that is just established to create work for the public around that area.
Okay.
So those people, just because there is not enough money that they are being given, their wages are so low, very low. So they don't even work. So they don't even bother doing what they are said they were employed to do, because you can't say we need to protect certain areas and then you implement the program as an EPWP. That is not going to work. That is not going to work, because people are not going to have that courage to do what you employ them to do, because there's nothing that you are giving them.
Yeah. So
all
the
this
wages are
labor.
so-
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair compensation.
So there is no such in South Africa. But also looking at how monitoring or patrolling is done. Since I started here, I've never seen a patrol boat
I think maybe.
patrolling. I've never. I'm not saying there isn't. There might be, but I've never
In
seen.
Mossel Bay?
Yeah.
It's not an MPA though. So there's no enforcement that you could have, even if you wanted to. The only thing you could do is stop them fishing for white sharks.
Like maybe if
you
you've got
caught them.
NSRI and you violate like a boat safety thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Like it's fair. Unfortunately, Mossel Bay is fair game. Like anybody can do what they want here.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and I mean, also, like, you can't do what you want, so no take, reserve, and hook. People do. And in the years since, apparently, illegal fishing's gotten worse.
Yeah.
But if that goes back to, well, people aren't being compensated, you know. Project Hugh in Indonesia is a really great example. If you look into Shark Girl Madison, and then a former colleague of mine, she actually was an oceans intern, Chelsea Black, but she went down and they were part of a really badass project tagging the first tiger sharks ever in Indonesia in one of the like biggest, most lethal hotspots for shark fishing in the world. Like, go check it out; it's amazing.
I think I've been seeing a few of those pop up on Instagram and TikTok. Yeah,
it's phenomenal, and exactly what needs to be done. And I think it's a phenomenal example. What Shark Girl Madison's built up there is building these interpersonal relationships with these shark fishermen, building trust, and remembering that these are people who have families and needs and financial constraints, and are actually very down to run shark ecotourism or research trips instead of fishing, but can't. And like when COVID hit everywhere, they had to go back to shark fishing in order to have enough money to feed their families. And
tourism was
or
the first
sometimes
thing
still
that died,
have to do that. And like don't necessarily want to. And that's where you start getting into why these are big questions, and the emotions are very high and very real, and why it's not a simple solution. And I used to be one of those idealists that was like, why can't we just do all that? And then you just dig a little deeper and realize, like, okay, there's a reason that all of the people who've been in this field for a really long, multiple fields for a really long time haven't figured it out. But I think
it's a messy world, isn't it? It is a very messy world.
It's quite messy, yeah.
Messy.
There's no ideal solutions, and that's the one thing. Going back to what we said at the beginning, Nash Round Circle. If you think you know everything, you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, is we have to stop looking for the silver bullet.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants one so bad for everything. If you go into like toxic fitness industry, and if you want to have the silver bullet for your savings, and whatever it is, that's just not a thing.
Yeah.
Just
Get
look at
rich quick
ecology.
schemes, fix things quick. Like it's that culture and that mentality where you want things now.
Humanity,
reality is-
diversity is more stable, more mutually beneficial, working in community with everybody filling in a multitude of niches. It's the same thing for problem solving, for healthy functioning of any level of life.
Correct. But anyway, I don't think we're going to solve this problem today. But
Probably not.
going in the right way. But I want to say thank you very much for both coming on the podcast, and we'll see you again soon.
'Tis a
And
pleasure.
good luck with the new job, Emo.
We're still
Thanks
going to
for
bother you.
Yeah.
I know,
You
yeah.
come on again soon.
Younger
You can tell us how it's
brother.
going.